The ruins of the colony were silent, broken walls standing like teeth against the dark sky. Wind whistled through cracked steel frames, carrying the smell of dust and smoke. Among the shadows, a small alien girl hid, her body pressed tight against cold stone. Her eyes, wide and glowing faintly in the dim light, darted from corner to corner, always searching, always afraid. She had been alone for a long time, too long for someone so young. Her family had vanished when the colony was attacked, their voices silenced, their touch gone. She remembered screams, fire raining down, and then nothing but silence. Since that day, she had trusted no one, not human, not alien, not anyone. The world was dangerous, and every sound felt like a threat. The girl lived by scraps, pulling food from broken machines and rotting crates. She drank water that pooled in cracked tiles, bitter and dirty. Every step she took was careful, every breath held tight when strangers passed. She was like a ghost, unseen, unheard, unwanted. But even ghosts could feel fear, and her heart was always heavy with it. Sometimes she heard humans in the ruins, their voices loud, their boots striking the ground hard. She pressed herself deeper, into shadows. Whenever they came close, she had seen them fight raiders. She had seen them search for survivors, but she never stepped forward. She believed if she showed herself, they would cage her, sell her, or worse. Her people had told stories of humans, some kind, some cruel, and she did not know which ones were true. So she chose silence. She chose shadows. She chose fear. That night, the ruins were quiet, the kind of quiet that made her chest ache. She crouched in the corner of an old building, clutching a cracked piece of cloth around her thin shoulders. Her stomach growled, sharp and painful, but she ignored it. Hunger was familiar. Hunger was safer than risking her life by stepping out. Then she heard it, a sound unlike anything she had ever known. Not the crash of boots, not the growl of machines, not the roar of raiders. It was soft, high, and playful, echoing gently in the night. The sound made her freeze. Her breath caught. In her throat, her first thought was danger. Every new sound was danger. But then she tilted her head and the sound came again. A bark. The girl pressed closer to the wall, her hands trembling. She peered through a broken window, eyes straining in the dim light. A figure moved through the ruins, taller, broader, human. Beside him trotted something small, its tail wagging, its ears perking. The strange little creature barked again, the sound bouncing off the walls like laughter. She did not understand. She had never seen such a thing before. It was not a weapon. It was not a soldier. It was not a machine. It was alive, and yet it carried no threat, no sharpness in its eyes. Her heart pounded, torn between terror and curiosity. She wanted to shrink back into her shadow and vanish, but her eyes would not look away. The man walked slowly, carefully, as if he knew the ruins were hiding secrets. His voice was low, soft, calling to the little creature with warmth, not the rough bark of a soldier, not the harsh tone of a raider, but gentle, like someone speaking to a child. The girl hugged her, knees tighter, confused, afraid, yet something inside her stirred. It was not trust, not yet, but it was not pure fear either. The puppy, for that was what it was, sniffed the ground, chasing scents invisible to her. Its small paws tapped against the broken stone. Its nose wrinkled as it searched. Then, without warning, it stopped, its head turning, its bright eyes locked, onto hers hidden behind the broken wall. Her blood turned cold, her body froze, her breath shallow. She prayed it would turn away, but instead it barked again, happy, excited, as if it had found treasure. The man followed the sound, his head tilting toward her hiding place. The girl's heart hammered so loudly she thought it would give her away. She shrank back, pressing into the shadows, tears burning at the edge of her eyes. This was the end, she thought. She had been found, but the man did not rush, did not shout, did not draw a weapon. He only crouched slowly, holding out his hand not to her but to the puppy. His voice carried through the broken air, soft, almost like a whisper. "Come back, little one," he said, the words gentle and kind. The puppy barked again, but this time it did not return to him. It took a step closer toward her shadow, tail wagging, joy spilling out in every movement. The girl's throat closed. She shook her head in silence. She was terrified, yet for the first time in so long her fear was mixed with something else. A spark, faint and fragile, of curiosity, of wonder. What was this creature, and why did its sound make the dark ruins feel a little less empty? The ruins were no longer silent. The sound of soft barking echoed again, bouncing through broken metal walls and shattered glass. The alien girl pressed herself deeper into her hiding place, her heart thumping painfully in her chest. She had never been found before, never. And now this strange little creature with fur and wagging tail stood only a few steps away from her shadow. Her glowing eyes widened as the man stepped closer. But still he did not raise his voice, he did not run. He only moved slow, careful, calm. The girl waited for the anger, for the shouting, for the danger she always expected, but instead the man bent down and scooped the puppy gently into his arms. The puppy wriggled, licking his chin, and the man laughed quietly, a warm sound that felt strange in the ruins. The girl trembled, confused. She had heard laughter before, but it was always cruel, always sharp. This was different, soft, safe. "Not now, little one," the man said, his voice deep but kind. "We'll scare her." The girl's breath caught, her eyes narrowed. Had he seen her? Did he know? The man did not look directly at her. He only glanced once toward the shadows, and then he did something she never expected. He reached into a small pack at his side, pulled out a piece of food and placed it carefully on the ground near the broken wall. Then he stood and walked back a few steps, keeping his hands open, his eyes gentle. The girl stared at the food, her stomach twisting painfully, hunger roaring louder than her fear. She shook her head, whispering to herself, "No, no, it is a trick. It must be." But the smell drifted toward her, warm, real, and her mouth filled with water. Her tiny fingers clutched at the edge of her cloth, torn and dirty. She wanted to crawl forward, she wanted to snatch it, but her legs were frozen. The man sat on a broken piece of stone, his puppy now resting on his lap, its eyes half closed in contentment. He did not move toward her. He did not call her. He only waited as if he had all the time in the world. The girl's heart raced faster because she did not understand. No one ever waited. No one ever gave without asking something in return. Her people had taught her long ago that nothing came free. And yet here it was, food placed in the dust with no demand. The puppy wriggled again, jumping down from the man's lap, and trotted once more toward her hiding place. This time she flinched, less, her breath still shaking but her body slower to retreat. The little creature tilted its head, ears perked, and then it barked softly, not loud, almost like a greeting. The sound was strange, yet it stirred something inside her. Something she had not felt in many moons. A piece of warmth, buried deep under fear, began to rise. Still, she did not move, she did not trust. Not yet. The man seemed to understand. He stayed where he was, quiet, calm, as if he knew pushing too hard would shatter everything. The girl curled tighter into her shadow, her glowing eyes fixed on the food. Minutes stretched like hours, her hunger screamed, her fear whispered, and finally, her shaking hand reached out. She snatched the food and pulled it back into the dark, stuffing it quickly into her mouth. The taste filled her senses, so rich, so warm. It hurt her chest because it reminded her of something lost. The man did not move when she ate. He did not try to come closer. He only gave a small nod and spoke again in that same soft voice. "It's yours." The girl froze at the words, chewing slowly, her eyes wet. No one had said that to her before. No one had ever given her something without trying to take more. The puppy barked once more, happy, its tail wagging like a little flag. It pressed its nose closer to the wall, sniffing at her hand. She jerked back, afraid. But it did not stop. It only wagged harder. Her fear and her hunger collided, leaving her shaking, but in that shaking she felt something else. A thread, fragile and thin, connecting her to this strange creature and the human who waited without demand. The night grew colder. The ruins groaned under the wind. The man stood at last, lifting the puppy into his arms. "Tomorrow," he said softly, almost to himself. "We'll try again tomorrow." The girl's breath caught. He was leaving, but not forever. His voice carried promise. She watched him disappear into the shadows, the puppy's small head resting on his shoulder. For the first time in so long, her chest felt different, no longer only filled with fear, but with something else she did not yet understand. When the night grew silent again, the girl touched the ground where the food had been. Her small fingers pressed into the dust, and for the first time she whispered a sound. Not a word, not yet, but a sound that almost carried hope. In the distance, faint but clear, she thought she heard the puppy bark one last time, and against her will, she found herself waiting for tomorrow. The morning light filtered weakly through the broken walls of the ruined colony. The alien girl stirred in her corner, her stomach no longer empty, but her heart still uneasy. The memory of the human and his strange little creature stayed in her mind like a dream. She wanted to push it away, to bury it under fear, but it returned with every breath. She had survived by trusting no one, by hiding, by fearing. But the small animal, the puppy, had not hurt her. It had not threatened. It had pressed its wet nose against her hand. It had wagged its tail as if it had been waiting just for her. And the human had left food, real food, without trying to take anything in return. That confused her more than anything. Nothing came without cost, not in this broken world. Her ears twitched when she heard it again. The sound of paws tapping on stone. Light, playful. Her body tensed, instinct pulling her back into shadows. But her heart, traitor to her fear, pushed her forward. She peered from the crack in the wall, and there they were again. The human walking slowly, and the puppy bouncing at his side. The man carried no weapon in his hands, no harshness in his face. He walked with care, scanning the ruins, but not like a hunter, more like someone searching for something lost. The girl's breath quickened. Her fingers dug into the wall. She told herself to hide, to wait, to let them pass, but the puppy had already noticed her, its tail wagging wildly. It broke into a run, paws clattering against broken tiles, heading straight for her. The girl gasped, her body frozen. She wanted to run, but her legs betrayed her. She wanted to shout, but her voice was locked deep inside. The puppy slipped through the gap in the wall, its tongue hanging out, its eyes shining with joy. It came so close that she could feel its warmth, its tiny body pressing against her knees. She flinched hard, raising her hands to push it away, her palms shoved gently at its soft fur. But the creature did not stop. It stumbled, then bounced back, licking at her fingers, tail beating the ground like a drum. Her chest heaved, panic rising, but the puppy's eyes held no danger, only endless trust. The taste of yesterday's food was still fresh in her memory. And now this strange creature pressed its trust into her hands. The man appeared at the broken wall, his eyes catching hers for the first time. She froze again, every nerve screaming to vanish. But his gaze was not sharp, not cruel. It was steady, calm, almost sad. He raised his hands slowly, palms open, showing he carried nothing. "It's all right," he said softly, his voice like a whisper of wind. "I won't hurt you." Her ears twitched, her body shaking harder now. She did not understand his words fully, but his tone carried meaning. It was not the bark of command, not the sting of threat. It was gentle, the way her mother's voice had once been before the fire took her away. Her throat tightened, her breath catching as the memory stabbed through her chest. The puppy barked, happy and excited, pressing its nose against her hands again. She jerked, but did not strike it away this time. Her fingers trembled as they brushed against its fur. It was soft, warm, alive, and for the first time in too long she felt something safe. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away, afraid he would see. The man did not move closer. He only crouched at the wall. He called the puppy back with a gentle sound. The puppy whined but trotted a few steps away, sitting near him, still staring at her as if it had already chosen her. The girl pulled her hands tight against her chest, her heart pounding. She thought he would take the food back, or the creature, or throw stones to drive her away. But instead, he reached into his pack again, pulling out another piece of food. He placed it on the ground between them. Not close, enough to trap her, not far enough to ignore. She hesitated, her hunger gnawing, her fear screaming. But slowly, trembling, she reached out, dragging the food back into her corner. She stuffed it into her mouth, not because she trusted, but because she had to survive. The man gave the smallest smile, not wide, not threatening, but enough to warm the cold air. "That's it," he whispered. "You're safe." The girl stiffened at the word safe. She did not know what safe was anymore. She had forgotten. But the sound of it lingered in her chest, pulling at something broken deep. Inside, as the sun set, the man stood once more, lifting the puppy into his arms. "Tomorrow," he said again. "Tomorrow." The girl pressed her back to the wall, clutching her knees. She should have felt only fear, but instead she felt something she could not name. And when the puppy barked one last time, her lips trembled with a sound, a whisper she had not spoken in months, almost like hope. The girl waited in the ruins the next day, her knees pulled close to her chest, her eyes fixed on the broken street outside. She told herself she was not waiting. She told herself she did not care, but her ears twitched at every sound, her heart skipping whenever she thought she heard paws tapping against stone. Hunger still lived inside her, but it was no longer the only reason she lingered in the shadows. She wanted to see the little creature again, the one who wagged its tail and pressed trust into her trembling hands. When the sun stretched high, she heard it, the faint bark, light and happy. Her chest tightened, her breath quickened, and her glowing eyes darted toward the broken wall. There he was, the human, walking slowly through the ruins, and beside him, the puppy ran in circles, sniffing and barking. The girl pressed herself deeper into her hiding place, fear rising, yet something inside her whispered not to run. The man did not call out. He did not force her to come. He placed food again in the dust, a little closer this time, his hands open, his voice soft. "There you go," he murmured. "Only if you want it." The girl's stomach growled, but her gaze was not only on the food, it was on the puppy. The little creature bounded toward her again, its small tongue hanging out, its eyes bright. It barked softly and pressed against her knees as if it had never left. Her hands trembled, but she did not push it away, not this time. Instead, her fingers brushed its fur light as a whisper. It licked her hand warm and wet, and she flinched, then gasped, then almost laughed, though the sound died in her throat. She had forgotten what laughter felt like, but for a heartbeat it almost returned. The man watched from his place on the stone, his eyes gentle, his smile faint. He did not move closer, but he spoke again. "Good boy," he told the puppy, though his words seemed meant for her too. The girl's ears twitched at the sound, not the words themselves, but the way they carried no threat, no demand, only kindness. Her chest ached, her walls trembling. She pulled the food closer, eating slower this time, not in a rush of fear. Between bites, her hand stayed resting on the puppy's back. It wagged, harder, leaning into her touch as though it had waited its whole life for this moment. The warmth spread from her hand to her arm to her chest, and though she told herself not to trust, not to hope, she could not stop the feeling. The man reached into his pack again, this time pulling a small blanket. He folded it and placed it near the wall, careful, deliberate. "It gets cold," he said gently. "This will help." The girl stared at it, suspicious, but her shoulders shook. The cloth she clutched around herself was thin, torn, useless. Against the night winds, her throat tightened, her hand pressing harder against the puppy's fur, torn between fear and longing. The man stayed quiet, only waiting, his patience deep as stone. She hated that silence because it made her think, why did he wait? Why did he bring food? Why did he give without taking? Her walls screamed at her to stay hard, but they cracked, piece by piece. That night she pulled the blanket to her corner. It smelled strange, like him, but it was warm. For the first time in many nights, she did not shiver until her bones ached. She curled against the fabric, her hand still remembering the puppy's fur. Her heart, small and broken, beat with something she had almost forgotten. Not safety, not yet, but something close. The next day she found herself waiting again. Her ears searched for the bark, her eyes searched for the man, and when they came, she did not hide so deeply. She let the puppy climb into her lap. She let her fingers move through its fur. Her lips parted, trembling, and for the first time in moons, her voice broke the silence. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice cracked, soft, almost too quiet to hear. The man froze, his eyes widening, then softening again. He did not rush to answer. He only lowered his head. "Because no one should be alone," he said quietly. "Not you, not him, not anyone." The girl's chest heaved. Her eyes burned. She wanted to scream, to deny, to push him away, but the words tangled in her throat. When the sun set again, she curled in her corner. The blanket wrapped around her, the memory of his words heavy in her chest. The walls around her heart still stood, but cracks had begun to spread, and through those cracks, a small warmth seeped in, carried by a puppy's bark and a human's gentle voice. The girl woke to the sound of soft paws against stone. Her eyes opened wide, her body tense, but this time fear did not fully claim her. She pulled the blanket closer, the one the human had left, its warmth still clinging to her small frame. Her ears twitched at the sound of the bark, and before she could stop herself, her lips almost curved upward. The ruins were the same: broken walls, shattered glass, dust filling the air. But her corner felt different now. It no longer seemed like only a prison. It had become a place where the puppy could find her, where the human might return. And that thought alone made her heart ache in a way she did not understand. The man came again, his steps slow and careful. The puppy ran ahead, tail wagging so fast it blurred in the dim light. It bounded toward her without hesitation, leaping into her lap, pressing its warm body against her chest. The girl stiffened, her hands frozen in the air. The creature licked her chin, its small tongue tickling her skin. A sharp sound burst from her lips, half gasp, half laugh, and she clutched her mouth, shocked at herself. The man watched from the broken wall, his eyes gentle, his smile small. But real. He said nothing at first, only let the moment be. The girl's trembling fingers lowered at last. Brushing the puppy's fur, her touch was light, as though she feared it would vanish if she pressed too hard. But the creature only leaned into her hand, wagging harder, as if it had been waiting its whole life for that one touch. Her heart pounded, in her chest, fear mixing with warmth. It felt wrong to let her guard fall, but the softness beneath her palm made it impossible to hold the walls as strong as before. Tears blurred her vision, though she blinked them away quickly. The man's voice reached her then, quiet, steady, carrying no demand. "He likes you," he said, "more than he likes anyone." The girl's lips trembled, her throat tight. She wanted to answer, to ask why, but her voice was too weak, so instead she let her hand remain on the puppy's back, stroking slowly. Each stroke cracked another piece of the barrier inside her chest. The creature's joy was so pure, so unafraid. It broke through the heavy weight of fear she had carried for so long. The man shifted, crouching lower but never stepping too close. "I'm David," he said softly, pointing to his chest. "David." She stiffened, her ears twitching. His voice carrying a sound she did not know. Her lips pressed tight, but inside her mind she repeated it. "David," a sound strange and human, yet safe in the way he spoke it. Then his hand moved to the puppy's head, stroking gently. "And this is Buddy," he added, the little creature, barking as if proud of the name. The girl blinked, her lips parting in silence. She could not bring herself to say it, not yet, but the name settled into her chest like a seed. Buddy, the one who had pressed through her walls, the one who had made her laugh. The puppy barked again, climbing onto her shoulder, licking her ear. She giggled, a soft sound quickly muffled by her hand. Her heart raced, Not with fear this time, but with something new, something fragile and bright. The man's smile deepened, though his voice stayed quiet, careful. "You don't have to be alone," he whispered. "Not anymore." The words hit her harder than she expected. Her chest ached, memories flashing, of voices long gone, a family torn away by fire and smoke. Tears rolled down her cheeks, hot and silent. The puppy licked them away as if it understood, as if it had been waiting to heal her. She lowered her head, her voice breaking. "Why?" she whispered, barely audible. The man's eyes softened even more, his reply simple. "Because family is something you make," he said. "Not just something you're born into." The girl's breath shuddered, her fingers curling in the puppy's fur. The walls inside her heart cracked wider, the shadows not as heavy as before. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe, just a little, that maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe she did not have to be a ghost in the ruins, maybe she could be something more. As the sun dipped low, painting the broken colony in shades of gold and shadow, the girl curled tighter around the puppy, her body shaking but her heart lighter. The man rose to leave, but before he turned, he spoke once more. "Tomorrow," he said gently. "I'll be here tomorrow." The girl pressed her face into the puppy's fur, her lips moving with a whisper too soft to carry. Not a word of fear, not a word of anger, but the beginning of a name. "Buddy," she whispered, her voice trembling but real. And for the first time in so long, her world did not feel so empty. The days in the ruins began to change. Where once the girl only heard silence and fear, she now listened for footsteps and the happy bark of the puppy. Every morning David came, his hands gentle, his voice calm, his smile soft. Every morning Buddy bounded toward her, tail wagging, pressing warmth into her small hands. The walls inside her heart had cracked, and light had begun to slip through, but peace never lasted long in the broken world. The girl knew this truth, her bones carried it, her scars whispered it. And one evening, as the sun bled across the ruins, her fear returned, not from David, not from Buddy, but from the harsh sound of voices that did not belong. The raiders had come back. Their boots struck the stone like hammers, their laughter sharp and cruel. They carried blades and old rifles, their eyes hungry not for food, but for power. The girl froze in her corner, her small hands gripping Buddy tight. Her breath came in gasps, her chest crushed by the weight of old terror. David stiffened, his body moving in front of her without thought. He crouched low, one hand near her, the other gripping a broken piece of pipe. His voice dropped low, steady but urgent. "Stay behind me." The girl's glowing eyes widened, confusion mixing with fear. No one had ever stood between her and danger. No one had ever chosen her over themselves. The raiders drew closer, their shadows long against the fire-colored sky. One of them sneered when he saw David. "Look what we've found, a stray human and his pet." Another laughed, pointing toward the glow in the shadows. "And more than a pet, look at that little alien rat hiding." The girl's body shook, her nails digging into her skin. She wanted to vanish, to melt into stone. But David stood firm. "Leave," David said, his voice steady, calm but edged. Like steel, the raiders only laughed louder, spreading out, circling. The puppy barked, sharp and fierce, its small body shaking but unyielding. The sound drew the raiders' eyes, and one of them smirked. "That thing will make a fine meal." The girl gasped, her fear snapping into something sharper. Her arms wrapped tighter around Buddy, her body trembling but refusing to let go. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking, but stronger than before. The raiders heard her, their cruel smiles widening. They stepped closer, their boots crunching glass, their blades catching the last light of the sun. David's grip on the pipe tightened, his eyes never leaving the raiders. He moved like a shield, keeping himself between them and the girl. She clung to Buddy, tears streaming down her face. The puppy barked again, louder, braver, as if it believed its small voice could fight back the world. And for a moment, the raiders faltered, glancing at each other, surprised by the sound. Then the leader snarled, "Enough." and lifted his weapon. The girl's heart stopped, her breath frozen, but before he could strike, David moved fast and fierce. The pipe swung, clashing against the raider's arm, sending the blade clattering to the ground. The fight erupted in the ruins. Heavy footsteps, shouts, the crash of steel on stone. The girl hid deeper in the corner, clutching Buddy so tightly he whimpered. Her body shook, her mind screaming to run, to hide, to disappear, but her eyes could not leave David. He fought not for himself, not for survival, but for her. Every strike, every move was a wall he built to keep danger from touching her. The raiders cursed, one limping, another bleeding. They had expected an easy victory, not resistance, not a human who refused. To bow finally with angry growls, they pulled back. "We'll be back," one spat, his voice dripping with promise. Then they vanished into the broken streets, their shadows swallowed by night. Silence returned, heavy, broken, but real. David stood panting, blood trickling down his arm, his pipe bent in his hand. The girl crawled forward, her knees weak, her hands trembling. Buddy barked again, not fierce this time, but worried, pressing against David's leg. The girl's glowing eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. You stayed," she whispered, her voice raw. David turned, his face tired but steady. "I told you," he said softly. "You're not alone anymore." Her heart cracked wider, the walls inside her crumbling under the weight of those words. She reached forward, her hand shaking, not toward Buddy this time, but toward him. Her fingers brushed his arm, light, afraid, but real. It was the first time she had touched another since the day her world had burned. That night, as the stars rose above the broken colony, the girl curled close to Buddy. David sat nearby, his eyes scanning the dark, pipe still in hand. Her fear had not vanished, but something else had taken root. For the first time, she believed he would come back tomorrow. For the first time, she believed she might truly belong. The night after the raiders left was heavy with silence. The girl sat curled in her corner, Buddy pressed tight against her chest, his little body warm and steady. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on the man nearby, the human who had fought for her, the human who still sat awake with a bent pipe in his hand, guarding. She wanted to speak, but her voice was trapped, trembling like a bird in a cage. When morning came, David rose slowly, his body stiff from bruises, but his eyes calm. He looked at her, not with pity, not with anger, but with quiet understanding. "You don't have to hide anymore," he said softly, his voice carrying no command, only an invitation. The words shook her, pressing against the last walls around her heart. She wanted to believe, yet fear still clung to her bones. Buddy barked, wagging his tail wildly, as if he understood what the man had said. The little creature bounded toward the girl, pressing its nose into her hands, licking her fingers. She smiled, faint but real, the first true smile her lips had. Carried in many moons, her chest ached with the weight of it, but the warmth inside her would not fade. Later that day, the raiders' shadows did not return, but the fear of them lingered in her mind. Every sound made her flinch, every echo made her heart race, but each time David was there, his voice steady, his presence firm, and each time Buddy pressed against her, barking at the empty air as if to say she was safe, piece by piece. The ruins around her felt less like a prison, more like a place where she was not alone. One evening, as the sun dipped low, David sat near her corner, his pack resting by his side. He pulled out a small piece of cloth, folded neatly, and held it. Toward her, it was not food, not a blanket, but something else, a small scarf, worn but clean. "You should have something that's yours," he said gently. "Something to keep." Her fingers shook as she reached for it, her heart hammering. When the fabric touched her hands, tears filled her eyes. No one had given her anything since the day her family was taken. She pressed the scarf to her face, breathing in the faint scent of him. It was strange, human but safe. Her lips trembled, her throat tight, and then slowly she whispered, "Thank you." The sound cracked, broken from lack of use, but real. David's eyes softened, his smile warm. "You're welcome," he said, his voice low as if he feared breaking the fragile moment. That night, she did not curl in the corner alone. Instead, she sat near him, Buddy between them, his tail wagging in contentment. The girl leaned into the puppy, her hand brushing against David's arm by accident. She flinched, then froze, but he did not move away. And for the first time, she let the touch stay. Days turned into weeks. The ruins no longer echoed only with fear. Now they carried the sound of Buddy's barks, David's quiet words, and sometimes even the girl's laughter. It was small, uncertain, but it was there, like a new flower pushing through cracks in stone. The walls she had built around her heart had fallen piece by piece, and though fear still lived inside her, it no longer ruled her. One evening, the sky lit with orange and purple. The girl sat with Buddy in her lap. She turned to David, her glowing eyes softer than ever before, her lips parted, her voice steady this time. "Family," she whispered, pointing at him, at Buddy, at herself. David's eyes filled with something deep, his voice breaking as he nodded. "Yes," he said. "Family." Tears spilled from her eyes, not of fear, but of release. She pressed her forehead to Buddy's, fur, whispering the word again, holding it close. "Family, not by blood, but by choice. Family. Built in the ruins, carried by kindness, sealed by a puppy's love." That night, as the stars stretched across the dark sky, the girl did not hide in shadows. She sat in the open, between David and Buddy, her hands resting on both. Her heart, once only heavy with fear, now beat with something brighter. Hope, fragile but real, had taken root inside her. And as Buddy barked softly, tail wagging, the girl whispered the word, once more, "Family,"